Lionel, is that you?
There, I think I got it. Bruce?
Lionel?
Chris?
Hey, Lionel.
Hey, Chris. Hey, Chris. How's it going? I almost said that.
It's going well, Lionel. It's going very well.
Did you get that air conditioner fixed yet?
Yeah, it's like September now, isn't it? Brr.
No, I think it's August. I got a feeling.
Oh, August. Okay.
Late August. It's late August.
Yeah, you'll still have some heat to go.
Man, did we have fun at Tomstock?
Oh,
what a blast that was!
I couldn't believe how long it took us to get Kelly out of when the cops took him away. I couldn't believe how long.
Well, yeah, I couldn't believe how many cop cars show up there when Kelly started acting up. Holy cow! I'm thinking, wow, this is pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all just a misunderstanding about wearing his Speedo in the hot tub.
That's all it was. That's all it was.
But had he not had the banana the banana sling Speedo, things probably would have been okay. But that one just kind of, it was just too much for the good folks at Robesonian.
Yeah, that's right. But the problem was he wore it on the bus too.
Yeah, that was kind of sketchy. I'm glad he sat in the back. Well, of course, we wouldn't let him sit anywhere else. So.
Oh my God!
Such a fun time we all had.
And then we started fooling around with those hard balls because of the first pitch. And when Tom decided he was going to be catcher, and when he took one right off the forehead, the guy went down like a stone.
he went down like a soccer player.
He never even saw the game. That was it for him.
No.
Bruce, do you remember some time ago? Chris, I'm not ignoring you. Oh, first, Bruce, is this the first podcast since the last podcast?
Indeed, it is.
All right. Oh, you know what we're doing tomorrow, Chris?
Hmm.
It's getting all wavy now. We're going back in time.
Oh, okay.
We're going to see Bernard Helen, and Bruce is getting his 3D. Bruce the mailboy is getting 3D scanned.
Oh, how did that go?
Well, there was a bit of a misunderstanding because I thought I had to have like a medical gown on, and they kind of
again with the Speedo, the banana Speedo, right? It was good of
when I walked in and the guy said, no, not that kind of scan.
It's good of Kelly Delindia's Speedo.
Yeah,
I had it soaking in a 45-gallon drum of chlorine for about 3 weeks. Yeah.
What a screw up. So, anyways, Bruce. Some time ago.
Yes, okay. Let's get back on track, sort of.
This is news for you, Chris. I don't think you've heard this before.
Oh.
I've decided from this point forward, or actually from another point forward, but from some point forward, I decided that I'm going to start to refer to Gordie Robinson as Young Master Robinson.
Makes complete sense to me.
It does, doesn't it? Seems like Young Master Robinson. You know, it's British, it's Scottish, he's young, he's a master of all things. It's young Master Robinson.
I hear he's a master model railroader.
That's right, he's a master model railroader, so he's Young Master Robinson.
I think I saw him wearing a shirt said Young Master Robinson MMR.
Oh, did he?
The NMRA National.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, there you go.
Is he going to the National?
Had he been to the National?
Has he been to the National?
Yeah,
we were all at the National.
I'm assuming as president he was there. Yeah. Kind of one of the key functions for him to attend.
Yeah.
I think if he went to Indiana to go to a regional, I think he's fully expected to be at a National. After all, who's going to hammer in the meeting?
Yeah,
the big gavel and everything.
That's true. You got the big gavel. So anyways, Bruce, remember quite some time ago, we interviewed Young Master Robinson with his trusty sidekick, Riley Triggs.
Yes.
But we never really, and then was it you, Chris, that told me that Riley uses, what is it called? What do they call it? Cold rail or something?
Yeah.
Was it you that told me
it was, what was the context? We were talking about it in some, I think maybe perhaps it was a fans, and this came up. Oh, because remember Gordy was on the fans with us, the big anniversary fans, right? And and something came up because it just happened, and I said, you guys were talking about it, and I said, well, did you guys even mention Riley's dead rail?
Oh, dead rail, yeah.
And they're like, what? And so I said, yeah, Riley's got a really fun layout, and there's no electricity on the rails, so.
And so that clicked me. So then not long after that, I added his name to one of my lists, one of my many lists.
Oh, what do you got, like 30,000 people on that now?
Yeah, well, I was reading it the other night. Just to the short list that I have in front of me, I have a total of 27 people on it. And so, nice. But he's on the short. He had, and then I'll make another list, thinking, okay, these are people I want to talk to pretty quickly. And, either I got to make contact with them and see if they got audio and blah, blah, blah. So I started that. And then I added his name on there. And then I thought, hey, I'm not doing anything. I should text Riley and see if he'd want to be on the podcast. Because I think I'm sorry.
So you got this down to 27. That's like almost manageable. It's almost like you could like count it on your fingers and toes and a few extra appendages.
No. That's 27 on several different little pieces of paper that are right in front of me.
Oh, it's 27 pieces of paper full of names.
No, it's 27 names. But then if you go deep into the computer, you'll find a list of about 150 names on top of that.
Okay.
It just goes on and on and on. Like Dean, like here's one list has Dan Harmon, Dean Ferris, Alex Lang, Mike May, Mark Hempel, Wayne Mollahan, Joe Relation, Tom Schmieder, Maine Models, Stacy Walters, Lone Star Models, Hatton's Model Railroads from Britain, which was really cool. And that's just one little piece of paper. And
what are the names on Riley's piece of paper?
On Riley's piece of paper are Jim Homoka, who we met in Springfield at the Hampton Inn. I don't think I'm pronouncing his name correctly though, but I'm pretty sure it's Jim. And he's heavily involved with the Penn Central Historical Society. So I contacted him. We've made contact here at the studio. He came into the studio. We tested his audio. A headset has been ordered and sent to him, so that we're in the process of that. Nice. Another one is Tim Garland, and I've contacted him, and we've met in the studio, and we interviewed him quite some time ago, and he's a locomotive engineer for Norfolk Southern, but he has his own YouTube channel, Seaboard Central, and he's a really interesting guy. And then
go ahead.
Yeah, let me finish this particular list.
Yeah.
And then after that, I have a note here, shop owners, because Lauren James and Stephen Atwell kind of started this one, because Stephen Atwell said he listened to Lauren James' interview, and it was pretty cool. So then Lauren said something about, hey, we should have other shop owners on, or I said it. So now I'm going to have I want to do a podcast with Chris Brimley, Stephen Atwell, and Lauren James. 3 shop owners from different areas, and talk about retail. Mike Burgett, who is Dave, Uncle Dave's helping me with that one. Boomer Diorama, but I heard from Lauren James that he reached out to him and he's not interested. This guy that everybody's raving about, Boomer Diorama. And right under his name is Riley Triggs. And I'm going to take my pen right now. I'm going to
scratch it off.
I'm scratching that off.
Well, what I noticed was that on the other list, we just blew right through all the names, but this one, each one's got
this list
a little more detail, like a little more texture.
A little more
because they're
This is the list I made that I'm going to work on over the summer. John Farrington, who's a very nice young man. I'm actually a fanboy of his. And Tom Klomoski talked about him. Scott Thornton talked about him. He's a friend now of Don Iris. And
wait, are you sure Scott should be on that list, not the other list?
What this list?
Yeah.
Scott Thornton?
I mean, it's Scott Thornton, after all.
No, he's irritating the crap out of me, so he's not on any list right now.
Oh, okay. Misunderstood.
But he's coming up, actually. We have heard his latest. We did get him along with Bernard Helen, whose microphone crapped out halfway through. And then he kept saying, my microphone's not working. Then I went to meet Bernard. Finally went to his shop, and he fessed up that he had decided to glue his little foam knobby thing to the end of his microphone. And so he got all kinds of CA glue in the microphone part.
Nice.
Nah.
That sounds a little bit like why my AC quit working.
Yeah. Is why you were gluing it to the wall.
Moving parts and seized up.
Yeah. And then finally on this list is operatingsessions.com, We got to talk to those guys.
Oh yeah.
We got to talk to those guys. So, anyways, that's what we're doing, talking to Riley Triggs tonight, because I think he's a whole lot of. I want to talk to him about some NMRA stuff, so don't tell him. At first, we'll just
we'll just kind of bushwhack him with it.
Yeah, like we'll just for the first
kind of bring him in and chat him up, and then
boom,
bam.
Because he's got a really good blog that I found when we were interviewing Eric Hansman.
Yeah.
Port of New York. Okay, can somebody go into the green room and ask Riley to come on in?
Hey, Riley, can you come up?
Hey, Chris. Yeah, how's it going?
Hey, good.
I don't know.
For you.
Yeah, we didn't have the speaker turned on in the green room, but we're really interested in your layout.
Oh, excellent.
Port of New York. Where are you from originally?
I am from Austin, Texas, and that's always the first question: is why on earth would I model New York City?
Yeah,
I've got a good answer.
Okay, well, give us the answer, and then we'll determine how good it is.
Okay, well, I really like bananas, and it turns out that the Port of New York. I don't know if you guys like bananas, but bananas are really awesome.
Well, you know what? I have a banana thing. I
like a nice banana milkshake.
I like bananas when they're pretty fresh, like just after they're green and they're easy to peel. There's a day in there when boom, I like that banana.
Yeah, narrow window,
but then after they start going away and they get softer and softer, I like a firm banana.
To get the orange brown spots on.
Oh, I don't even. They're not even on the counter at that point. They're long gone. So.
Yeah, I love bananas, but I agree with you. There's like a point when you just almost kind of a little bit more work to actually eat it because it's a little soft.
It's too soft.
Well, then you turn it into banana pudding.
Well, sure.
There you go.
Or banana bread.
Or banana
milkshakes.
Yum.
Yeah, see,
banana milkshakes.
I don't really like any. Well, I like banana popsicles.
Yeah, and that's a hard flavor to find.
It is a hard flavor to find.
Yeah.
One summer, I decided I was going to lose weight by eating a lot of popsicles, and what do you call the things that are in a plastic sleeve?
Oh, the freezies.
Freezies. I decided this is how I was going to lose weight was by eating a ton of popsicles and freezies.
Yeah.
And and I was golfing a lot, and then about a month into it, I'm thinking, how can I not be losing any weight?
Yeah.
By just eating popsicles and freezies until somebody pointed out to me that I'm like packing down about 4 pounds of sugar a day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It says cherry and orange on it. I mean, why isn't it fruit?
Each one is 390 calories, but I don't understand.
Yeah, exactly. So that was a very failed experiment.
There we go. Hey, so Riley, you were asking about bananas.
Yeah.
I think we concluded we do like bananas.
Yeah, I'm surprised. Okay. I'm surprised you haven't left already.
I'll put you down as pro banana because I keep lists of people and like what kind of fruit they like.
Oh, do you have fruit snacks at your operating sessions?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, well, we'll get into this topic later.
Yeah, I'm writing that down. What kind of
fruit? Yeah, fruit is actually a pretty important part of the operations of the Port of New York because they had connections down to Central America and Cuba and whatnot, and so a lot of the traffic that was coming into Hoboken, which is one of the cities that I model, was fruit from south of the equator, and lots of good stuff coming in on ships.
So how did you? Okay, so let me see if I can paint a word picture here. One day you're sitting on your patio. You're a younger gentleman. You're sitting in your mom and dad's house. You're sitting outside on the porch eating one of your bananas, and you go, boom, I would love to model the place where bananas come from in South America and they land in North America. Is that kind of how it went?
It was sort of like that, although it was a much longer process. I'm an architect by trade, and I've taught architecture and graphic design at the university level. And so I teach my students to go through the design process to figure out what the appropriate solution to design problems are. And so I went through that same process in order to decide what railroad I wanted to model. So that involved figuring out, it's kind of like the old Givens and Druthers thing, where you figure out what your constraints are. What's the size of my room? What can I handle? What do I like? How do I want to go about it? What's the purpose of it? All that sort of thing. And so I started writing those things down, figuring out what the constraints were, figuring out what the things I liked were. And then I went out into the world of prototype railroads and looked for something that would fit as many of those items as possible. And so, some of the things that I liked were car floats, big buildings, street running, anything around ports, because that's really interesting transition between rail and ship traffic. So with those in mind, I pretty quickly found the Port of New York. There's also like San Francisco and some other places like that in the United States that have the same sort of activity. But the Port of New York had it all, and it had it all like in huge amounts. So I gravitated towards that area, and then I started looking into the individual railroads that are up there. And of course, New York has all the railroads going into it, or did in the 1950s, which is one of the time periods I was interested in. And so I had this this fruit bowl to choose from of all these different railroads and all these different things that they could do. And one of the neat railroads that I found was the Hoboken Shore. And so that's kind of the main railroad that I model. And then there are all these other little pocket terminals, which a pocket terminal is a terminal that is only accessed by car float. So there's no land line, to it. So the Port of New York has these little pocket terminals just ringing all the rivers and going around Manhattan and in Brooklyn and on the New Jersey side.
So hang on, there are terminals that can only be accessed by water?
Yeah, by car float. Yeah.
So a train will come in, shove some cars onto a float, and then the float has to go to wherever they're destined to, because the only way that car can be unloaded and get to its destination is by car float.
Yes. And so, the New York Central was pretty much the only railroad that had access to like the island of Manhattan by land. But everybody else kind of stopped at the Hudson River and then had to float their things across to Manhattan or to Brooklyn or Staten Island, or all those areas ringing the port. So lots of activity, lots of tugboats. All these railroads had marine fleets, which was like a whole nother operation in and of itself, with their own schedules and timetables and procedures that they did. So when I stumbled upon this, it was fascinating because it was something that was so different from growing up in Austin, Texas, nowhere near the water, nowhere near bananas, nowhere, near these kind of interesting things that I wanted to model. So when I stumbled into that, it was basically, now I have a lifetime of research, exploration, and modeling that I can do.
Actually, I'm looking at your track plans. It's actually very cool. I'm going to have to thank young Master Robinson for introducing me to you.
Oh, there you go.
Wow. So I'm looking at the final track plan right now. So that's a really good explanation. The only problem is it sounds like you're very organized, and you're trying to be pretty accurate.
Yes.
And just so, it really has no bearing on your future, but just so you know, at the AML, here at the old AML network, transparency is paramount. We try to be as transparent about things as we possibly can. Accuracy, not so much. So just
you haven't seen my workbench, so that kind of balances me out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm a really good thinker and then a really messy doer.
Okay, but if there's anything where I might ask you a question and you're thinking, geez, will he know the answer? I'm not 100% sure this is the correct answer. Fear not. Accuracy is of no concern to us.
I feel much more comfortable now.
Yeah. So where does this, so if we direct everybody to your blog, and I'm going to, before we go on, only because transparency is paramount here, I'm not a big fan of blogs. I don't know why. I just don't understand them. I just don't understand blogs. They seem always so complicated to find things and do things. And I was complaining about that to Uncle Dave once. And I said, well, you can't find nothing. And then, he put in a search thing on his blog. Do you have a search?
I do.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, then I'm starting to like it better then.
Well, and yeah, blogs are an interesting thing. They're almost like passé because they've been around so long and technology changes so fast and everything. And everybody's doing things on YouTube now. It's video, podcasts, and all those sorts of things are much more accessible than blogs. And so, I mean, you're right. They're not very popular, I don't think anymore, like when they started. But it's a really good way to document, to journal, to organize your thoughts. And it's really useful for me because I can go back and I can go, well, where was that that reference, or where was that research source that I used for such and such, and I can search my own blog and find it.
Yeah,
So it has some other uses too.
Yeah, so I think that's really where the key is for blogs now in the future is they're really each individual's own library of stuff and things they want to keep track of, and you just happen to make it public.
And I think now, with social media, there's so many ways to kind of document what you're doing, put your ideas out there, and get feedback. That it's really a part of a system. So blogs are probably kind of on their way out, but a lot of people are still gravitating towards Facebook. There's Instagram, of course, YouTube. I think is going to be popular for a long time. But having all these things kind of connect to each other and present the information in their own way is really powerful. And so you can really build up kind of the identity of your layout and find a community of people that are interested in what you're doing and find support and help and camaraderie and all that sort of thing. So it's just like anything else. You get out of it what you put into it.
Yeah. And let me just say, your blog is very well organized.
Oh, well, thank you.
So I'm quite enjoying it, actually. This is the way, someday this was the way all blogs should be.
Well, it's and it's intentionally that way. And I took a long time setting it up, and probably not as much time as I should have adding content. I haven't added anything in quite a while, but I'm getting ready to because I've made some progress on the layout. So I'm actually kind of getting excited about my blog again.
Okay, I think that's key too. Is you'll come across somebody's blog and there hasn't been an entry since July of 2019, and you're thinking, well, is he still doing it? Did he give up on it? Whereas so long as even if it's just every couple of months, so somebody goes to your blog and they just see, haven't done much, but here's a picture of something, and that the person is actively managing the blog. That makes a big difference to me personally. And of course, we don't all have to live by Lionel's rules, although I prefer it if we could.
But I do think that the kind of video blogs or the vlogs, which people used to call it, what's his face on Last Man Standing? He did a vlog as part of his show within a show.
Right.
But I think that's something that actually probably has a lot of potential that people aren't using. And as who brought that back to my attention was Jonathan Jones in New York. He's somebody that I followed for quite a while. Really enjoy his N-scale New York layout and how he approaches things. But he just kind of does updates and he organizes them very well. He's also an architect just by chance, but he presents his information really well. And there are these kind of short updates and easy to watch. Something that you can watch it at bedtime or in between meetings or something like that. So I think that format is something that I'm going to explore pretty soon as well.
So is this a YouTube thing or a?
He does it on Facebook. I think he probably posted on YouTube, but
okay.
But it comes to on Facebook.
Do you know what his Facebook what it is? Because people are going to want to see it now. Only so if we could maybe figure out how to steer people towards it. Jonathan Jones.
Yes, and it's going to be. He's got a group. I'm gonna have to search for it real quick while we're
all
talking.
right. Well, we can talk, and you can search and talk. Have a banana while you're searching. So
it's always a good time for a banana.
I got to give you credit. I think you're the first guest we've ever interviewed that had a love of bananas, as you seem to do. When do you like to eat your bananas? Like, do you understand what I'm saying? I like my bananas firm. So there's that short window when you buy them, and you're, over the next 24 hours, you got to jam in 4 or 5 bananas because then they start going away from you.
Well, and the trick I think is to kind of pace yourself and organize your eating habits according to how soft and how hard your bananas are. So really planning out that today I get to eat it just as a banana. But, this weekend I'm making pudding or
right.
bread or something.
Right. I found Jonathan Jones, My Train Journey Instagram photos and things. Would that be it?
That's probably part of it.
Okay.
I got distracted by bananas again.
Yeah. See, that's the problem with bananas. They can be very distracting.
That is. I think
That's
probably the biggest complaint I have with bananas.
Speak up, Chris.
All yellow. Oh, did I lose my microphone? Yeah, they're all yellow and it's,
All right.
So Jonathan's Facebook group is called the CNJ Newark branch in Brooklyn.
Okay.
And he's got 589 members who follow him. And I do believe it is private. I think you have to ask to be a part of it.
Newark. How do you spell Newark? CNJ Newark. NEWARK. Yeah. And what is it in? CNJ Newark. And then what?
Branch. BRANCH in Brooklyn.
Okay. I'm going to just go with
Brooklyn spelled BANANA.
There it is.
Yeah.
I found it.
I just realized I'm already a member of that group.
Well, you're a member of every group.
I forgot I joined. I got onto that a while back. People were talking about all the various Brooklyn railroads, like Harlem Transfer and stuff like that.
So yeah, okay, I found it. So it's CNJ Newark branch in Brooklyn. If anybody wants to track down Jonathan Jones, and why did we start talking about him? Because you found his blog, or what?
He does video updates.
Okay.
That's kind of his way of sharing what he's doing and how he thinks about things.
Okay, which he posts on this group. Perfect. Okay. Yeah. And you're thinking of going in that direction now. But don't take it the wrong way. I think your blog is really, really good. I mean, it's really easy. So far, you got all those across the navigation bar. You got links. So, layout plans, area models, locomotive photos, HBS real estate report. What is that? Hoboken, Brooklyn. What is that? HBS.
So that's the Hoboken Shore Railroad, and that's kind of the main part of my layout.
Okay.
And that real estate report is kind of my holy grail of research. It's something I found on eBay, which is one of the major components of my research is just searching eBay endlessly. But I found this report for one of the times in, I think it was 1955 or 56, when the railroad was looking to sell itself because it was in financial problems, just like every railroad has been. And they list, all the assets of the railroad, including, how much track they have, what industries they serve, even rates for, how much they charge for, moving silk on the railroad. And that was something that, I just kind of happened upon in this report, this mention of silk. And I'm like, why on earth would there be silk in Hoboken, New Jersey in the 1950s? And that kind of started a whole research string of looking at silk and silk being moved by railroads, why it was in New York, all that sort of thing. And it led to, this whole kind of supply chain of silk coming from Asia, crossing the United States by railroad, ending up at Hoboken, where it was protected under guard because silk was like more expensive than gold at that point, and then moved over to the fashion district in New York, where of course it was made into garments and all sorts of different things. And so, this one little line in a rate chart in a real estate report from the 1950s for my railroad showed me how I ought to operate my railroad with, making sure that I have a silk car that comes in every once in a while, make sure that it's put in a place that is secure with armed guards, and that it gets weighed when it comes in and when it goes out to make sure that nobody has stolen it. So a really interesting, very unique characteristic of my railroad found from this kind of obscure thing that I bought on eBay.
That's the cool part of this hobby, isn't it? Just all the the nooks and crannies that you can explore and find and discover and expand your knowledge of things. That's just, and I'm assuming you've been a model railroader since you were a kid.
I would pinpoint it at about 8 years old. Yeah, when my older brother got interested in it. My older brother's about 7 years older than I am, and he started to get interested in it and started buying some things and making a layout. And that started my journey for sure.
Yeah.
And then, he kind of moved on to baseball and girls and things like that. And I never gave it up.
What do you think it is about this hobby that once you're drawn in, you can't get out?
The main thing is that there are so many different ways of engaging with the hobby. And I'm somebody who enjoys everything. You can sit me in front of a painting, a movie, out in nature, in front of a book, whatever. I'm going to find some sort of enjoyment out of that, out of the different topic, and really enjoy just kind of learning about it. And so railroading has all these different ways that you can engage, whether it's, technical, mechanical, whether it's, the operations and playing with things, it's the artistic side of designing and doing scenery. And, there are just so many ways that you can engage that it is a lifetime hobby. And, if you get tired of doing one thing, you can move on to the next thing or whatever. But it's this kind of endless pursuit of knowledge in these different areas that also goes into the basic research of railroads. So many different railroads out there. Finding the individual characteristics and what makes something unique is really that's kind of like a challenge all of its own. And then trying to recreate that so it's something meaningful for people who come and see your layout, for yourself. And it becomes a modeling challenge on not only how to do it, but how to communicate it so that people can appreciate and enjoy and engage on the same level, or at least sort of the same level that you are when you're building your layout. So it's just it's a fascinating approach to understanding the world and understanding life and understanding all these other sorts of things while you're making, while you're thinking, while you're engaging all of your senses. So it's one of those hobbies that since it's so much about understanding how the world works, you've basically got the world to play with for the rest of your life.
Now, that's a great explanation. That is a great explanation of the hobby.
That should be written down for posterity.
I know,
somewhere.
or at least recorded, eh?
Or recorded. There'd be I'm saying you push the button, right?
Uh-oh.
Could you repeat that again, Riley? But at the end of that great explanation, ... Now, on top of that is all the great people you meet in that pursuit.
Exactly. And that's where the social media bit comes in, which is why I think it's actually pretty important for our hobby.
It's huge for our hobby.
Yeah, and especially, during the pandemic and all that sort of thing. But, a lot of my best friends are internet friends. They're people that, are living in Virginia or Norway or Scotland or wherever. And because of social media, because of communication technologies and everything, we can gather with people who think in a similar mind and carry on conversations and be in the same headspace with people anywhere in the world. And I think that is one of the important things about the hobby, is being able to find people that you have some sort of simpatico with, some sort of connection that you can reverberate with and get excited with them and keep in contact and push each other or help each other. And of course, they become friends. It's not just about model railroading at that point.
No.
It's it's about their everyday lives. It's about their work. It's about their whatever, because it's all kind of wrapped up into one.
I think I found the perfect analogy, because I used to say you could take a guy that drives a FedEx truck, but I think I found the perfect analogy. We have our young friend Josh Bowman, who is I'm very proud of Josh. He's mid-30s. He owns his own farm. He is extremely intelligent is the word I would use. He is a really smart guy, and he can fix anything. So he has his own agricultural machine repair business, and he's doing really, really well, building a new shop, and he's just a fun guy to know. And then you can have a doctor in Boston who's, maybe the world's leading neurosurgeon. And if these two guys find a common bond in model railroading, like you say, they will become lifelong friends.
Oh, yeah.
And they would never have met or crossed paths any other way. And they find some sort of a common bond. They will become good friends, not just friends. They'll become good friends. And it's such a great part of the hobby. I think it's the nucleus of this hobby, actually.
Absolutely, and I think model railroading lends itself to that, because there are so many different aspects to model railroading that you gather people from all different walks of life who have different interests and whatever. But there is this commonality, like you say, that it's a touch point, and it's just a starting point. And, in a relationship, you just need one thing that's in common, and then you'll find 10 other things or, whatever. And there you have a lifelong relationship going.
Well, you take you and I, for example. We've actually talked 3 times. This is the 3rd time we've talked. But if we met each other at some train thing and we decided we were both going out to dinner, we'd be like, hey, you want to go to dinner? And we have we've never met other than through social media. But, like the first date jitters are gone, we'd have a great time going to dinner together.
I think we would enjoy sharing a banana.
Yeah. So long as it was like in that right 24-hour period.
That is without question.
You got to have, there's nothing better than a firm banana. But it's got to be firm. Once they start getting soft, I'm like, I'm out of the game.
I think if we've learned nothing else tonight, that is it. A firm banana is really important.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to ask you a question now that I'm almost positive 3 out of the 4 of us are going to know the answer to. And I'm pretty sure I'm the only one that doesn't know the answer to it. And that's just the way it is, because 3 out of the 4 of us have gone to university. And one of us was asked, once you're done high school, maybe you could just stop. What is this? I've clicked on the word COLOFOFHOLAON. COLOFPHOLON. What is that word?
Calophalon.
What the heck is that? And first off, Bruce, do you know what a calophalon is?
I have no idea.
Oh, things are picking up. How about you, Chris?
Nope.
Wow. So obviously, I clicked on it, and it's basically a biography of the author of this blog. Where does that word come from? Calophalon.
So it comes from books, from publishing. And it's something that is just like a little blurb that talks about the information about the book. So like, who published it, the date of publication, and then, maybe something about the authorship and how it was printed. But also it'll have things like the typeface that was used and things like that. So it's a nerdy typographer's term, and that comes from my time in graphic design and in that sort of world.
Calophalon. Sounds more like something that you contracted. Can't come into work today. I got calophalon. How are they?
Of course, I'm Google searching this right now, and I come up with totally different spelling.
Who would ever come up with such a word? Anyways, let's not get onto that.
I don't know.
Me neither. So it says, greetings, I'm Riley Triggs of Austin, Texas. I am an architect and educator, and my main hobby interests at the moment are focused on, and then it goes, researching and building the Hoboken Shore Railroad and Erie Railroad, and connecting railroads from around New York Harbor. And you've scratched out, so you used to be the layout design journal guy and layout design special interest group guy.
Yes, I was the editor of the Layout Design Journal for a while.
All right. How did that go?
It was really interesting. A really interesting bunch of people, of course, design oriented, and I had the privilege of editing and publishing and designing and all of that. The LDJ for quite a while.
Yeah. Well, I know. I've hung around the LD's group for quite some time, especially at conventions. They have this great tour they'll do on the Wednesday, I believe, of most national conventions, where they have their own layout tour, which is great.
And that is happening again this year in St. Louis.
I'm assuming you're going to St. Louis, because what's your official title with the NMRA?
I don't know what the official wording is, but I am the head of the publishing department.
Okay.
So I'm the publisher of the NMRA magazine and associated books and any other publications that the NMRA does.
I'm pretty sure we're not going to have enough time tonight. I feel confident we're going to run out of time. The network only allots us so much time, and I have so many questions. This is a really good blog. I highly recommend anybody that's looking for it, go to Pony, it's Pony RR, Port of New York Railroad, and blogspot.com. PONYRR.blogspot.com. I highly recommend that you go check out this blog. And I found it from Eric Hansman's blog. And
Eric's one of those internet buddies of mine.
There you go. Have you guys ever met?
We have, and it was because his wife was in town interviewing for a job, and he was like, "Hey, I'm going to be in town." And I said, "Let's have dinner. Let's talk." So we had a great evening together, and whenever I see Eric, we're going to hang out.
Well, just be careful. Don't ever get close around him with a tray of slides. Just next time you're talking to him, just for fun, say, "What's the deal with you and Lionel in this tray of slides?" So
I'm guessing he had more than 2 thumbs involved in that.
Yeah. Between the two of us, we managed to dump quite a few of them on the floor.
Yikes!
Just before I was supposed to do a presentation.
Oh.
And he, to this day, some 20 plus years later, still denies that he did it on purpose. And I still insist that he somehow the ring that holds the slides in the carousel tray had come dislodged. And he was trying to help me get the thing set up. And somehow between the two of us, we managed to dump, a dozen slides on the floor.
52 slide pickup.
Yeah, 52 slide pickup. That's right.
An excellent game.
Yeah, exactly.
Except when it's 3 minutes before you do to go on.
There you go. Exactly. And it wasn't just a clinic. I was the guest speaker at the banquet.
Oh.
Yeah. So there's still, I still claim that it was some sort of, he did it on purpose, but you
would still have dinner with him next time you saw him. Right?
Oh, absolutely. We just interviewed him. He just was on the podcast about a month ago.
Lionel never turns down a free dinner.
No. Well, I've turned down a few. There's a couple of people I wouldn't be eating dinner with. But,
they're on a different list.
Yeah, they're on a different list. Yeah. So tell us about this. I want to ask you some questions about the NMRA, but I feel like don't want to get because your layout is really cool. It's like
we haven't even talked about my layout yet, Lionel.
I know, because you're an interesting guy, and we talked about a whole pile of stuff already, and we haven't even got to the layout. Yeah, it is
vocabulary words. I mean, we've had exciting discussions of
bananas.
Fruit.
What's that word? Cola. How do you say it?
Calophalon?
Calophalon.
Calophalon.
Manamana.
Calophalon.
Calophalon. Calophalon. So, okay. So, and I also remember, now it's all starting to come back to me. When we interviewed you before, at the age of the tender age of 12 or 13, you were marking tests from university students and basically determining whether their life was going to be any good or not based on the mark you gave them. Yeah,
it was actually graphic design exercises. Yeah, my dad was a design professor at the University of Texas at Austin, and he did this with all of us kids. He would grade on like Sunday afternoons, and so we'd sit down. He'd pop open a beer. I'd pop open a Dr. Pepper, and he said, put these in order of like how good they are. And so I would go around the room and, lean them up against the couch and the table and all that sort of stuff and kind of swap them around and whatnot. And he'd be sitting back, sipping his beer. I'm sure highly amused at what we were doing. And after I would do it, he would go, not bad. Maybe like switch those two around. But yeah, I think you're right. So like, why? And so we discuss it. And that's what life was like at my house. Our dinner time was, enhanced by a bookshelf right behind my dad where he could reach around and open up an encyclopedia and say, "Oh, no, you got that wrong. It's actually, something like this." So very, very lively intellectual household. Both my mom and dad are, very well read and thought about things pretty deeply. So that's the environment that I grew up in.
Very cool. And then somewhere along, so how old were you when you kind of this, Port of New York thing dawned on you? Like, what do you remember the process? Like, were you in your 20s or 30s? How old of a man are you now?
I am in my 50s. I think I just turned 55. I'd have to do the math real quick, but okay. I don't have a calculator near me. So
do you have a driver's license anywhere handy? We'll need some sort of ID.
Do you need a driver's license these days?
Oh yeah, you should.
I better put that on my list to do.
Put that on your to-do list. I've got a Barb story. I got a Barb story about driver's licenses. Anytime somebody's interested.
Let's go.
You want it now?
Oh, why not?
Well, maybe we should. It's Riley's time. Let's ask him.
Oh, Riley can go look for his license while you're talking about this.
I'm always up for a Barb story.
All right.
Yeah.
So my secretary, Barb, of 33 plus years, 32, 33 years. When it comes around, it's time to renew my driver's license and my medical card to go, because we have universal health care here north of the border. So you got to renew these two cards. And, it's always a hassle, and it's government offices, so it's confusing. So she decides she's going to come with me. Okay, I'm thinking, all right, this will make my life easier, because she'll answer the questions and just point to where I got to sign and blah, blah, blah. So that's what we do. We go to the office. Everything goes along pretty well. We wait in line, have a little chit-chat. She talks to everybody because that's the way she is, which is enjoyable to do. We kill the half an hour while we're waiting. It becomes our turn. Our paperwork is pretty much all in order. I make the gal behind the counter laugh, and it's, we take our goofy picture. I always try to look like Nick Nolte when he was arrested. And picture goes well. So the girl behind the counter is laughing. She's going, do you want to take it again? And I went, no, are you kidding? That's perfect. Everything goes well. And then because my driver's license was now null and void, I'm given this piece of paper that's like, to me, it looks like, about a 20 by 30 inch piece of paper that you're supposed to fold up into a small square and stick in your wallet. And there's another piece of paper that goes with the health card that you're supposed to fold up and stick in your wallet until you get your new cards in the mail. So she folds them all up and she hands them to me. And I said, you just keep them. And she said, no, you got to carry them around with you. And I said, I'm not carrying that stuff around with me. I said, I got my old license and my old health card. She says, no, you can't do that. You got to carry them with you. I'm like, I'm not carrying these two giant folded pieces of paper around with me for the next 3 weeks. And there was much chagrin and wringing of the hands and silence for a day or two because I wouldn't carry these pieces of paper. So then she tried to stick them in my car when I wasn't paying it. I said, Barb, just keep them here in the office, someplace safe. If for some reason or other I need to prove that I have a valid license, I have the valid license. I'll keep the old ones in my wallet. Just try to relax. And there was much chagrin and hand-wringing until I got the new license. Pretty much at least every 2 days. Did you get your new license yet? Well, no, not yet. You got to carry this. No, I'm not. And then I had to go to the hospital a couple of times. And they won't look at you without this piece of paper. I said, I'm pretty sure they will. I've been there over 300 times. I'm pretty sure they're going to recognize me. So that was my Barb story. I thought it was a lot better when I was telling it, but it doesn't sound like it was that good of a story. She, for some reason or other, Barb, when she gets something in her head, it has to be done. And I'm kind of, the basis of this story is, I did hire you to be my secretary, right? Some 33 years ago. It's like, we seem to be just doing things the way you want them now.
It's amazing. It's hard to believe that AML's been going along for 33 years now, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right, for sure. Yeah.
Back when podcasting was mail order cassette tapes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. Well, our buddy Jim Sacco found that cassette tape of the podcast from 20, 30 years ago.
He did.
Oh, yeah.
He did.
Was Barb handwriting the labels on then, or was?
Yeah, Barb was handwriting the labels on that.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Riley. I took up too much time of your interview. Maybe I should cut that out. Let's go around the room. Do I cut that story out or do I keep it in? Bruce?
I'll leave it in.
I think we need to workshop that a little bit.
Yeah.
we could work on it and then try to tell it again in the next episode.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe work bananas into it somehow.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
There we go.
That's what I was missing.
That's what I was waiting for. It was like, how
I was waiting in line to buy bananas, and they wanted to see my driver's license, and I didn't have it.
Well, yeah.
Lionel never appreciates a good callback.
And then the problem was, like, on the third day, she had these bananas on her desk, and she kept insisting I had to eat one of these bananas. I said, these bananas are 3 days old. I'm not going to eat those. Well, then you got to carry the paper. You either got to eat one of the bananas or you got to carry the paper. That's
There you go. Now we're on the right track.
Now we're getting there.
All right. So word on the street is, what did you call it, Chris? Dead rail?
Yeah, I think that's sometimes referred to dead rail. Other people don't like that term and call it other things.
Some people call it cold rail.
I've never heard it called cold rail. That sounds like cold fusion to me. But
So what?
I think we're starting something new here. Let's call it cold rail.
Okay.
I'd heard it called cold rail before too.
Yeah, that's because you said it.
Oh, did I?
Yeah, we were plugging that years ago on the podcast.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that too. Now that you mention it.
And so are you like the only guy that's doing it?
I'm not the only one, but Keith Gutierrez from CVP Products, his Airwire system is what I use, and he said that as far as he knows, I am the only person in the world that is using entirely battery-powered locomotives on my layout using his system.
Really?
Yeah.
So
his system is targeted for large scale.
No, there's HO scale stuff now too.
Okay.
He's doing the micro receivers and has been for several years. But yeah, it started out in the large scale. Specifically the garden railroads and whatnot, where of course keeping track clean is pretty much impossible. So it started there, and then he micro miniaturized it so that it'll work in HO locomotives. And it's a great system. I love it. I love the throttles have been evolving, and where they've gotten to now is a really great operator friendly throttle. So there's a lot of pluses to that. But just battery power in general, I think is a godsend for the working man model railroader. One of the things about my layout that I've tried to do is keep it simple. It's because I am still a working man. I actually have a day job, and I teach at night, and I'm married, and so I don't have a whole lot of time to do model railroading. But when I do, I want to be playing with it. I don't want to be fixing it. I don't want to be cleaning it. I don't want to be hunting down shorts, all that sort of stuff. And so with battery power, of course, there's no wiring. There's no cleaning track. Your locomotives don't short when you throw a switch incorrectly. They do kind of tend to end up on the floor because they'll keep running if they derail. So one of the first things I tell my operators, which is opposite of what most people say, is I say, touch the locomotives as much as you want. Like if it's going off the track and it's headed towards the floor, I would rather you grab it and break something with your hand than have it fall on the floor.
So before we go on, just so make sure everybody understands what we're talking about, you don't have any wire to your track. All the power is supplied right inside the locomotive. The locomotive runs itself,
which is the way God intended it.
Right. So there's a battery pack of some sort in the locomotive.
Yes. There's a lithium ion battery, which is the latest battery technology, and it is connected to a receiver, which is then connected to a decoder. And basically takes the place of the two wires coming from the track. So those two wires, feed both the power from the battery, like it would from the track, and then also the DCC signal, the commands to tell the locomotive to go forward and backwards and honk its horn. And that comes from a radio throttle. So there are no wires to the track. The track doesn't have anything to do with the power or the DCC for the locomotive. And so you have this now kind of incredible freedom where your throttle is connected directly to your locomotive line of sight sort of deal. And you have direct control of your locomotive without having to worry about all those things that model railroaders stay up late at night trying to fix.
Yeah, how do you find the install on these? Because I remember a few years ago in the Owen 30 annual, somebody did an article on dead rail. It was basically, it's great, but nobody should try to install these things on their own because they're impossible to install. Yeah. So you got to send it to a professional to have it done, which to me kind of defeated the purpose of the article. So I assuming they've come a long way since then, that it's rather easy to install these things and battery life is okay and charging is not a big problem.
Well, one of the reasons why I gravitated so strongly to this is because I hate wiring. I hate doing the electrical side of the hobby. I've done my fair share of crawling under layouts and soldering, track feeders and having cold solder joints and all those problems associated with that. and I don't like to do electrical work. And I have found that installing battery power, it's not a beginner thing. I will say that, but it is the next step after you install a decoder, because all you have to do after you get a decoder installed is to run a couple of wires to the receiver and a couple of wires to the battery, and that's it. It's 4 wires, so it's not impossible. The hard part is finding room for the battery and finding room for the extra, chip, the receiver, to go along with your decoder. And so on my railroad, I have first generation diesels. So I have box cabs and little GE 44 tonners and things like that. And so I can't fit all of that into the actual locomotive shell. And so what I have to do is I have to have a trailing car that has all of these items in there, which is actually prototypical for how the Hoboken Shore ran, because they had a lot of street running, and if you get into street running for any length of time on a railroad, you find out that the rails get clogged with gunk, trash and dirt and other debris. And so they always carried a little sweeper maintenance away car behind them to clean the track while they're moving around. And so it fits with my prototype. I can have that battery car that has the receiver in it trailing behind in something that they would be carrying anyway. That's a characteristic of the railroad. So the batteries, I use some very nice batteries. You can use radio control batteries, which are like $5 a piece, let's say. But they are not quite as safe as using kind of the more considered voltage regulated and safer batteries, which cost more, like, I don't know, maybe $30 or something like that. And I highly recommend doing that just so you don't set things on fire in your house.
That's kind of a key consideration.
It is, and I had a fire extinguisher sitting by my door. It's actually still there, and that's the second thing I tell people is if your locomotive catches on fire, here's the fire hydrant. But that's hasn't been a problem, obviously. But these batteries are really great. They come in a variety of sizes to fit different situations. Have, of course, different run times with each one of them. But the ones that I get are about 800 milliamp hours, maybe 850 in some of my locomotives, and I can run an entire session, like 4 hours, and I don't run out of juice. And so that's all you need. I have actually no idea how long these batteries will last. So plenty of power, plenty of time.
So you put the battery in a car, like a box car?
A box car. Like in my case, I'm going to have maintenance of way cars.
Okay.
And then I just run 2 wires to the locomotive.
So
if you have a steam locomotive, you just put it in the tender.
Sure. And then you just take it out between sessions and charge it up.
You can take it out, or you can install it so that the plug is accessible and you can just plug in to the car.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've done some installations like that on some larger locomotives. I did an O-scale locomotive for David Barrow, and I had because they're bigger and easier to work with, you can have the plug installed so that you can get to it pretty easily with the charger.
How long ago did you do the O-scale locomotive for David Barrow?
Oh, that's been probably 3 or 4 years or longer. He did a part of Slayton, which is what he models on his HO scale layout.
Sure.
And he did just like a 12-foot section. I think it was in Model Railroad Planning or Model Railroader several years ago when he did it.
Right.
And he just kind of wanted to see what O scale was like, but he didn't want to do all the wiring and everything. And I said, well, how about battery power? He's like, sure, will you do it? I'm like, of course.
So let's go back to, how do you say Keith's last name again?
Gutierrez.
Okay. I thought it was Gutierrez.
Oh, Gutierrez. Okay. Maybe that's it.
No, maybe I'm wrong. It's more than likely I'm wrong. So he thinks that you're the only guy that has an HO scale layout that runs entirely on battery power?
That's what he told me when he operated here.
Wow. That's kind of impressive. That's impressive.
Using his system.
Using his, right. But he doesn't think there aren't any other systems out there, are there?
Sure. No, there are several systems.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Stanton has a system, their SCAB system. Trying to think who else. I think even like MRC has one now. It's actually becoming a thing, and there are ones that use radio throttles. Some use Bluetooth technology. So there's a lot of experimentation going on out there to try to make this much more accessible and much less time consuming with all the wiring and everything it tracks, so that the younger generation can get into it more quickly and just kind of jump in and have fun.
Okay. So here's radio control and battery pattern for model roads. This is the Stanton system. Wow. Look at that. And so I'm confused. Not uncommon. But so like you're always seeing people when they hook up decoders, there's this great mass of wire that has to be hooked up. Is that do you still hook up the decoder the same way as you would if you were using power from the track? Only now.
Yeah.
Okay, but now the power from the battery is a couple of wires to the other end of the decoder kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. And then if you want to get fancy, you put a little on-off switch in between that, just so you can easily turn it on and off.
Oh, okay. Have you and Chris ever operated together? Have you guys?
Well, I've operated at Riley's, and I believe we've operated together on other layouts.
Yes. Yeah, we have. And I think weren't we at like Pro Rail in DC a few years ago together? Maybe. I don't know. We have though.
But how far apart do you guys live? You're both in Texas.
So I'm north of the DFW Metroplex, and Riley is smack in the middle of Austin, just south of the little park there on the river.
So how far is it from Dallas to Austin?
It takes a good solid 3.5 hours to drive to Austin from here.
Okay. But you have operated on Riley's layout then?
Yeah, we went on a minivan ops tour and operated at Riley's. What was that? It's a couple of years ago, I guess.
In the before times.
But just barely the before times.
Mm-hmm.
What were the before times? Before this battery power?
Before the pandemic.
No, after battery power, but before the masks and whatnots.
So were you the guy that kept running the locomotives onto the floor?
That was not me. I never even ran one off the rails.
You seemed the way you said that. I'm assuming this happened. Some poor locomotive ended up flying off the layout onto the floor.
That has actually never happened. No.
Oh, really? It's just
it can, but
it's a legend.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, it's a legend. All right.
It's a continual threat, I think.
Talking about that, I can remember when they first, whoever's first plugging the Stanton drives, that they had them running on tables with no tracks at all.
Exactly.
Very cool. Very interesting. I'm looking at the CVP Products. So it's the system you're using is called the Airwire 900.
Yeah, it is the Airwire system for HO scale. So it's going to be the micro receivers, or they may be calling it something different now.
Yeah. It has lithium rechargeable batteries and chargers, and it's all of it is somewhere around the $100 range for most of the parts.
Yeah. So basically, you get your locomotive, and if you're going to add a decoder, that's $100. If you're going to add one of these Airwire receivers, that's about another $100. And then a throttle is like another $150 or something like that.
Right.
So you do invest more money like in the locomotive part, but when you start to factor in all the wiring all the time,
sure.
And I actually charge myself a pretty high rate for my my recreation time. That time's worth like $400 an hour, and so right, because that's like the most valuable time I have. At work I charge a couple $100 an hour, but my recreational time is at least twice as valuable to me.
Right.
So when I look at a project, and with this idea of simplicity, because simplicity is my whole mantra for my layout and modeling endeavors. Is something going to be worth spending an hour of time on at $400 an hour, or should I just go buy it and alleviate a lot of difficulties and problems later on? So, I mean, that was a major factor in my wanting to do battery power, because I didn't want to spend all that time wiring. If you look at my track plan, I've got I haven't counted switches, but if I were to wire everything up, all the blocks, have switch machines for everything, if I had signaling, all that sort of stuff, that is hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of time, plus the expense of the materials, where I can just spend a little bit more money on my locomotive and not have to deal with any of that other stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so how long have you been doing it? How long have you been doing? So like right out of the box, once you started building the layout, you started with this system, or?
No, when I started building the system or started building the layout, I was investigating these different systems. They were still pretty new. I didn't know anybody who used them, so I had no personal experience with them, but I heard about them. And so when I first started, I started on a little section of my layout, which is one of the pocket terminals. So I could try out things. I could try out my track laying techniques, my wiring techniques, my scenery techniques, all that sort of stuff before I went to the larger portion of my layout. And so I had wired up that entire portion, which it's about 5 foot by 7 foot. It's the Harlem Streets, or the Harlem Station, for the Erie Railroad, which is at 149th Street. It was just a couple of blocks away from the original Yankee Stadium. So you just kind of get your mind into 1950s New York, and there's this little patch of dirt that has the Erie Railroad terminal there. And so I had wired everything up. I, had the isolating plastic rail joiners and, all of that, and actually had a DCC system, and, was running it that way. But when I got the battery power, it was a godsend. It was kind of the perfect thing for my layout in particular, not only because it's, kind of small. I don't have 100 locomotives. I've got, maybe like 6 or 8 locomotives. Well, maybe 12. I don't know.
What is it?
I'm not sure, but if my wife listens to this, I'm going to stick to just like 10. I have 10 locomotives. And
they're all Athearn Blue Box, right?
Oh, yes. I got them used. Some of them, were given to me as gifts. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. And the question you got to ask yourself is, why would your wife be listening to this anyways?
That's an excellent question.
She already knows what you sound like.
She does. And she already knows about all the stuff that I talk about incessantly, and she doesn't want to hear it anymore.
Where does she stand on bananas?
She's very pro banana.
Okay.
She will vote for a banana any day.
All right.
That's a big difference between me and my wife. She doesn't care for bananas. She is anti-banana.
Gasp.
Oh.
Yep.
Yep. Oh my goodness.
You're managing to kind of work through this in your marriage?
Well, it turns out that I actually seek out things that I'm the only one that likes, because then when I have certain snacks, that I don't have to worry about somebody eating all my snacks, and bananas are one of those.
That's
so you go and get the banana chips. You get the big bag of banana chips. They're all yours.
Yeah, that would happen. I generally eat bananas, fresh, but yeah, no, she doesn't care for anything that tastes like bananas. So no banana,
Beautiful.
but no banana pudding, no banana, like you mentioned, chips,
banana bread, banana muffin, banana.
So banana bread is kind of a little bit different. She can tolerate banana bread, but like anything that has like banana ice cream, anything like that has like a banana flavor like that, nope, not having it.
Where do you stand, Riley? Where do you stand on pumpkin pie?
That actually happens to be like my favorite pie in the world.
See, that was my contention too. And we had a certain Scott Lister on.
Yeah.
Who is from South Carolina of all places. And I said, well, it's a Southern thing to like pumpkin pie. And he says, I hate pumpkin pie. And I'm like, ugh.
And then you know what he said after that? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
My opinion on pumpkin pie is there's not enough whipped cream on the planet for pumpkin pie.
I don't understand pumpkin pie at all. It looks
and I thought it was a Canadian thing. I thought you guys just didn't appreciate it. You guys have your butter tarts and all, but we have our pumpkin pie.
Butter tarts are disgustingly sweet and yummy. Pumpkin pie is disgustingly disgusting.
Man, I've gotten to the point with pumpkin pie where I don't even have whipped cream. It is all about the pumpkin pie. And recently,
go ahead, Riley. Sorry.
And recently, I've added bourbon to the mix. So
Well, now when you bring liquor in, there your whole thing, because then you're
bourbon pumpkin pie.
Getting hammered while you're drinking.
One of my favorite things.
You're eating the bourbon and the pie, not drinking it. Okay, my mistake.
Oh, you can have a glass with it.
Yeah, one of my favorite things is just like a piece of pumpkin pie, like cold out of the refrigerator. Just eat it.
Breakfast.
No, yeah, exactly. Yeah, because I made the mistake of this came up. Somebody, what's your favorite pie? And I said pumpkin, and everybody's like, pumpkin. I can't understand how anybody could possibly eat pumpkin pie. Yeah, interesting.
I can't either.
It's one of those things.
I think my problem with most foods that I don't like is that my mother could not cook at all. Period. End of sentence. Water was a struggle for her. The strange thing about that was the only thing my mother could make that was with any consistency was every Christmas she would make mincemeat pudding.
Oh, there you go. That was another.
Did you say pudding?
Pie.
Mincemeat pie or pudding or whatever they call it, and it was delicious. And I always had this. I always had this straight. Why can she make this and she can't make a sandwich?
Interesting.
She was an intellectual, and my
grandma made pretty good pies. I think I really like pies, and she would make a mincemeat pie. Never developed a taste for mincemeat. I could eat it; it was okay, but I just never really got into it. But that's interesting.
Well, yeah, it wasn't interesting at the time, trust me, because there was the other 51 weeks of the year where I basically, my dad and I used to live on giant blocks of cheese.
Nice.
Co-op. And occasionally my dad would make.
Do you think that was just English being English that was the case, or?
No, she was an intellect. She was an intellect. She was one of these people that just wanted to see the world and had no interest in domestication whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
We might have had the same mother.
To be with. Yeah, I bet she was fun to be around if that was the case.
Oh yeah, like if she couldn't make a sandwich to save her life, but ask her what the effect of the war in Ukraine was going to have on the world over the next decade, she'd give you the right answer every single time. I mean, she used to write. She ended up writing. There was a guy in the big city Toronto newspaper, one of the big Toronto newspapers called, and his name was Luber Zink, I think it was. Anyways, she corresponded with this guy, and he was a long hair university guy, professor of certain things, world events and that kind of stuff, whatever you would call it. And she started corresponding with him, and eventually ended up working with him kind of as an assistant professor because she was a total, she was an intellect. She had no interest in domestication whatsoever. She never mistreated me in any way, shape, or form, but she could, you needed a sock darned or a patched jean. It was like, it wasn't happening. I tell the best way I can describe my mother is back then, lunch meat came in sort of a plastic package, but the top, the label for the lunch meat was underneath the plastic, and it was a paper label. And there were 8 slices of lunch meat in every package. And she would make me 2 sandwiches a day. And the 8th sandwich always had the label on it. She tried to do the domestication thing, but she couldn't. The dog wouldn't eat her cookies. Like it was just like, no thanks.
So how has this affected your own kind of level of domesticity?
In what way? Well, I'm over.
Did you follow in her footsteps, or did you overcome it? Did you seek a wife who was an amazing domestic, or what was your response to this?
I'm basically just a useless human being. I think it would probably be the best.
You can make brownies.
I can make brownies. Yeah, over the years I've learned to make some stuff, and yeah, my wife could cook. Like I met my wife, but I was not looking for food. It was not foraging for food, and it just turned out she could cook like crazy, and that sort of thing. But no, my dad.
She's been on the cover of Model Railroader.
She's been on exactly. She's been on the cover of Model Railroader. She made. Yeah, I can't imagine there's been any in the last 60 years. I can't imagine there was anybody else's wife. I think my family was the only family on the cover of Model Railroader.
So I did see. I went through and threw away a whole bunch of magazines the other day, recycled them, and I was looking through them, making sure there wasn't a better one or whatever. I found another one that had a family on it. It was a guy and 2 sons.
Okay.
So close.
Yeah, close. So close. That was the picture where we were standing behind a project layout that I'd built, And, back then we were using those hot halogen lamps and everything. And my son was being a good soldier, but he was getting hotter and hotter. So I said, well, let's just take off our pants and we'll take the picture without our pants on.
Naturally.
Yeah, well, exactly. We were there in our underwear. And so, yeah, we just, but anyways.
Lionel, are you saying that was a selfie?
I guess it was. That was the old way of making a selfie, a tripod, a timer.
Timer, yeah.
Yeah.
Boy,
exactly.
You were just ahead of it. If you only knew what you were going to become back then.
I was so far ahead of the curve.
But then again, there's the best part of that story is when the picture had to be retaken.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And we had already destroyed the layout. That's another story altogether. I don't want to pass over something, and we're running out of time already. This really annoys me. We're gonna have to be on the podcast again, Riley. I'm sorry to inform you. This is not.
Gosh darn it!
Yeah. Let's just really quickly. Let's not pass over the thing about simplicity. But just give me a couple of pointers of how you think, because this is a guy says simplicity is important to me. And this is a very, very complex track plan. I don't see simplicity in this track plan anywhere.
Well, but that's because simplicity has made the complex track plan possible and made it, maintainable. It's made it operable. So I try to keep everything else simple so that you can concentrate on the operations part, because that's really what has driven my layout. In fact, when I was designing my layout, I started with how it was going to be operated. I figured out what the operational jobs were, what the areas were that these people were going to be in, how many people were going to be there, all that sort of stuff, and developed the layout from there. So the simple part of it is, again, doing things like going to battery power, not having, choosing a railroad that didn't have signaling or CTC panels or any of that sort of stuff, which it's all very cool. And I love operating those like on, it's like a boat. It's like you want a friend to have one of those, right? But on my own layout, I didn't have time to deal with that. And so doing all those simple things has made it possible to have this kind of complex industrial switching layout and have people really engaged with the layout itself and the operating itself. Because that's what I really want people to get out of this, is to develop an understanding of this type of railroading and even more so the environment of Hoboken at the time. It was a hard, gritty, unromantic thing, and kind of the antithesis of this 1950s layout that you usually see, where it's the good old days and everything was optimistic and forward looking and that's not the way everything was in the 1950s. And so that's kind of an important part of it. But the simplicity, the kind of overriding idea is that the simplest way to achieve simplicity is through thoughtful reduction. And so what I've done is I've reduced all of the noise, all of the time suckers that I see with my layout and building a layout, so that I can concentrate on the really important things, the things that will be meaningful to the experience of railroading and of understanding what it was like on the waterfront in Hoboken, New Jersey in the 1950s. So the battery power is part of that. Not having track cleaning, all that sort of stuff is geared towards allowing the operator to operate and allowing me to play with my layout instead of maintaining it.
Okay. That's a great explanation.
It is a beautiful explanation.
You're a wordsmith. Do you realize that?
I've written some things.
Okay.
And I teach a lot.
Yes.
And so
that's what you
kind of what I do.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. It sounds like somebody that wants to teach and have people learn from you, and you've learned to speak succinctly and to try to get the point across and for people to understand what it is you're trying to explain to them. That's the
way I'm designing my layout, is so that those things are very clear that I want people to understand about railroading in Hoboken at this time. So I'm trying to eliminate all that other noise, and I'm trying to highlight those unique factors, like the silk train or the silk cars that are coming through, that really gets a flavor of understanding why this railroad is different from any other railroad.
Right.
And I think that's really important in model railroading too, is that you want to capture what it is about that particular thing that you're doing, whether it's prototype or freelance or whatever, it doesn't matter. But to have that clarity of thought where basically you have a thesis sentence for your layout, and then you design everything towards that thesis sentence. And it really works.
So really, try to determine what it is you want to model first. I mean, Chris, you pretty much always wanted to model the Western Pacific your whole life, right?
No. So
Southern Pacific?
Northern Pacific.
But it was
something.
You had the Pacific part, right?
Yeah. I modeled the Camas Prairie for a long time, which the Northern Pacific was a part owner, and then I got away from the Camas Prairie. But how I fell in love with the Camas Prairie was just because of geography.
Okay.
So, and before that, I was all into narrow gauge, so I've changed.
All right.
Riley, did you model something else before you started this Hoboken layout?
Just before you answer that question, Riley, Bruce, I want to apologize. Yeah. I want to apologize to you.
Okay.
And Chris, I want to apologize to you too, in advance.
Okey-doke.
Because I just wanted to tell you guys, when I was a young lad, in my before teenage, and even in my teenage years, I can remember there was nothing I loved more than on an evening, a warm summer evening, sitting out on the porch with a drink of a bottle of Dr. Pepper and a couple of time suckers. That was funny. He said the word time sucker. Things are time suckers.
Oh.
Come on. This stuff right.
You can get them in bags of assorted flavors.
There you go. Thank you.
Banana flavor.
Yeah, banana flavored time sucker.
Yeah,
there you go. But it wasn't spelled. It was spelled Tyme. It was a British,
like old timey.
Yeah, it was a British. It was a British thing, like Smarties. Now it's one of the ways you save time and make things simplistic is by getting your friends like Rick to build all your the vehicles for your layout.
So Rick, and you're speaking of Rick DiCandido of Canadian fame. He's the builder and operator of the Fillmore engine terminal, which has been featured in Railroad Model Craftsman a couple of times. I think just recently, as a matter of fact. One of the best layouts I have ever experienced, and it's for the same reasons why I'm approaching my layout the way I am. He's doing a freelance railroad. I'm doing a very prototypical railroad. But he's doing a freelance situation, looking at the New York Central and operations that could have been in this area and what they would have been if there had been an engine facility there. And his whole layout is just an engine facility. It's a roundhouse, it's an ash pit, it's a sanding tower, it's a fueling station, and it's a staging area. And it's about, 12, 16 feet long, something like that. And his whole idea is to experience the maintenance, the care of steam locomotives. And so the way he operates is, steam locomotives will come in from the staging. They will go through, all the procedures of, dropping the ash and refueling and getting sand and all that sort of thing, and then going into the roundhouse ready for the next run. So he's got a schedule of trains that these locomotives are needed for. So you've got an incentive to keep things moving, but at each station, so dropping ash or refueling, he's got a little timer, and you click the timer when you spot the locomotive, and then you go do something with another locomotive. When the timer goes off, you know that you can now move it on to the next stage. And so you experience what it's like to take care of these steam locomotives. So he's got a very focused idea for his layout. And once you get into it, that's what you're experiencing. And so that's what I wanted to do with my own layout too, is to have the operators focused on the experience of railroading and not the experience of running track. So like no blocks or so it's not about that. It's about what is it like to do this job in this particular environment. So what was the question?
So,
yes, Rick's. So Rick is.
Rick. One of the ways you manage to keep do simplicity. Move your microphone away from your mouth about 1/4 of an inch, or actually more like 3/16. Okay. One of the ways you manage to have simplicity for your layout is to have Rick do all your HO scale, paint all your HO scale locomotives. Lately, most recently, he's finished a bunch of Sylvan models for you.
Yes, he hasn't painted any of my locomotives, but he's made a bunch of cars for me. Yes,
right.
And that's one of the things in Hoboken. It's a very dense city, and there are a lot of cars. All the pictures that I have, the streets are just lined with cars. And the tracks run right down the middle of the street. So it's a very important component of feeling the congestion and the hustle and bustle of this particular area. So I'm going to need, we sat down and figured this out. And, it's something like, 600 cars or 700 cars or something like that on my layout. And Rick volunteered to start making them. And he's done an amazing job. And so I've got, a bunch of cars on my layout at this point. But Rick is the only person who has built any part of my layout at this point.
Okay.
And he lives in Toronto. And so, again, we've got a similar interest. We've got, we bonded over some certain things. And it's like he's living down the street from me, participating in my layout. I participate in his layout. And we're all in the same headspace and just having a grand old time.
And how did you meet Rick?
I think, let's see. How did I meet Rick?
I asked you first.
Yeah. Oh, I was asking Chris. Chris, do you know how I met Rick? I think I saw his layout. Maybe it was in Model Railroad Planning or I don't know, something like that. And I was traveling in the Buffalo area, which is very close to Toronto. And so I just tracked him down. I think he had a blog. So there you go. Blog is the way that I found him. I tracked him down, found an email address, and sent him a note and said, I'm going to be in the area. I really like your layout. Do you mind if I come by? And he's like, sure. And so I went by and we operated for like 3 or 4 hours on his engine terminal. And just thoroughly enjoyed it. And, I really appreciated how he's approaching modeling and his operations and all of that. And so, we've been email buddies ever since.
So you hadn't met him before you contacted him or even?
No.
Wow.
No. And that's something, in this hobby, a lot of people are kind of hesitant to reach out and talk to other people. But I have never had anybody say, no, I don't want to talk to you. I've never had anybody say, I don't have time for you.
Right.
And, so I will call up people, I will email, and everybody's been really generous. And if I've wanted to visit someplace, generally I do, get to as long as schedules line up and everything. And I think it's just, if you're in the hobby, you're in the hobby.
Yeah.
And you want to share your layout and you want to talk to people, generally. And so having these, emails come out of the blue where, somebody generally respects what you're doing and is interested, I've never been turned down.
Well, yeah. And you have to be careful. I mean, for example, this podcast, I asked you if you would be available to do this podcast at least almost a week ago. And, you had to get, you get back to me and we had to plan a date and find a day that was suitable for both of us, but we managed to work it out.
It was very complicated, but we worked through it.
It was kind of awkward when we all showed up with all of our equipment outside his house. He wasn't expecting us. I thought that was a little rude, but
what was it technically?
We should have been more clear about when and where.
Yeah, exactly. I realized.
At least you all had your pants on. That's kind of where I draw the line.
I bet you it was hotter in Austin today than it was in Lytle's basement.
I bet you it was too.
Yeah, it was almost that hot here in Toronto. Trana. I was in Trana today.
Oh.
Well, thanks for contacting me, by the way, when you come to Toronto. Nice.
I didn't know you then. I didn't even know you were a Canadian.
All right. We only got.
But you're on my list now. You're on my list.
All right. Perfect. You're going to be on the podcast many times. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It's really too early to tell.
It's $400 an hour.
Yeah. Yeah. Just as long as it's
exactly. The bill is in the mail. Please pay promptly. 30 days are my terms.
Oh, what do you charge the NMRA? I mean, if it's $400 an hour to have fun, it's got to be like 16 cents an hour or something to do work for the NMRA.
I actually have 2 psychiatrists now.
Do you?
I actually have 2 psychiatrists now.
You cracked the first one, did you?
Well, no, I still got her, but she insisted that I needed to see another psychiatrist whose specialty was life after cancer. And she wanted me to talk to this guy. So I've already seen him once, and I'm going to go see. Now I'm going to be, I got this, and I'm like, I didn't. He goes, Mr. Strang, you're very direct. I went, well, okay, if you say so. So this is going to be fun now.
Just tell him how timid and shy you were before you had cancer.
Exactly. This is going to be absolute. I've been dying to tell somebody that, like, really, and this guy, but he looks like Bob Marley. He's great. Totally different. I have no idea where this is going to lead, but be prepared. I guess that's what's happening right now. Is I'm just telling Bruce and Chris to be prepared for just about anything.
That's why we always keep the seatbelts fastened.
Always keep your seatbelts fastened. So I went to Rick's blog, and it's no longer available. But I did
Correct.
see that.
You've been to Rick's house, haven't you, Lionel?
I've never been to. I don't even.
Well, I mean, he lives right there in Toronto.
Exactly. We're just down.
He's right around the corner, isn't he?
A couple of blocks away. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This is very cool layout, though. I see the picture from your blog of his layout. Very, very cool. It's very, very similar to Tim Warris, who is the owner and founder of Fast Tracks, and now the owner of Mount Albert Lumber. And he kind of did the same thing. He did the Bronx terminal.
And he was an inspiration of mine, and still is, for that layout. That showed me what you could do in that amount of space, and it just kind of sealed the deal. And I said, yes, I'm in. I'm all in.
That's very cool that you enjoy that aspect of the hobby. I think that's like something we could delve deeply into about how that developed for you. I find that very cool. I wish I was that organized.
So
you better get more paper.
Yeah.
So Riley, I'm about to make my first trip to New York City, and I wonder, is there anywhere I ought to go visit that I'll come home and just want to rip my layout down and start building little ferry slips and things like that?
Well, I think maybe the Bush terminal is the only terminal that's still operating out there.
But is it something you can see, though? I mean,
I think so. I mean, I can research that for you, but they still use car floats and whatnot. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, wow, that'd be cool to see. Actually, that'd be a cool thing to go see.
And is that on the Manhattan side or the New Jersey side?
That, I believe, is in the Bronx.
Oh, it's in the Bronx. Okay.
Or in Brooklyn.
It's in Brooklyn.
Oh, okay.
No. The further question is it safe to go see?
Right.
It's Brooklyn, nothing but hipsters over there.
Yeah, Brooklyn's okay, I think.
Brooklyn's been gentrified. You're okay.
All right, we've pretty much run out of time. There's no point even getting into the NMRA thing. Hey, what happened at least tell the story about how when you first got it going there was some sort of a problem with the digital magazine or something. Isn't the digital magazine, is it not like the coolest thing you've ever seen, the NMRA digital magazine?
I'm pretty sure it is, yes.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. It's really cool. It's right there you can put it on your iPad and whatever. I'm still struggling with the app, but that's another discussion for another day. But
so I remember a certain bus ride in Kansas City where I was flinging my phone around, showing everybody the marker lamp because everybody was wanting to make I don't remember what the point was, but it was like, don't tell me you can't do that because this guy Riley in Austin's been doing this with the marker lamp for years.
I remember that.
And,
there you go.
And I think what it had something to do with Arduinos and code. And I said the key is the digital because you can make it as long as you want.
Exactly.
And so I pulled up one of Speed's articles and whatnots, and then we hit a bump, and I dropped my phone, and everybody forgot all about it. But it was a passionate moment at the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, look how successful that's been. What is the deal? What's the deal with young Master Robinson? I interviewed him and John Doring, which probably has been played by now, or around the same time. It's either just coming out or it's just been played. And I interviewed him and John Doring, and they're all about they're going to try to take the NMRA to like 150,000 in membership, and they're like the sky's the limit kind of thing. What's the deal with that guy? What's the deal with young Master Robinson? And
he doesn't take no for an answer. he doesn't believe that things can't be done just because somebody says they can't be done. Yeah, this digital magazine, it's just the start of things.
Oh yeah.
We did this in 9 months.
I know.
It's incredible. And I wrote Gordy and John an email following when we talked to them. It's nice to see a change that guys are saying instead of saying why, you go like, why not?
Exactly.
For years we've been told, oh, you can't do it, it won't work, blah 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 blah, and then Gordy says, no, we can do it. Here you go, boom, done.
Mm-hmm.
And while we were interviewing him, actually, I feel like I was kind of rude to you that day, Bruce. While we were interviewing them, we started getting bogged down a little bit in the minutia of this doesn't work or that sort of works and blah, blah, blah. And I think right now that's a really important point to make is while they're moving forward, we can't get bogged down the minutia of, okay, some things don't work as well as others, but we got to hang in there because I feel like everybody that's involved, is this the feeling of everybody that's involved is that hang in there, guys, we'll figure this out. Like, just hang on.
Yeah, and it's because people are working on things. They're not just sitting around, thinking about doing things. Like, people are doing things, and doing is figuring stuff out. So, yeah, there's good stuff to come.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So you're involved. So what was the story? Because there was some sort of a problem when you first released the digital magazine. Was there not for a week or two? I thought there
problem.
Yeah, you're having problems with Google giving you grief about something.
Oh yeah, we couldn't get on Google Play for the first couple of weeks, and that was something having to do with Zenio and kind of their end of things. And we got that taken care of, and it's fine.
Wow! And now
that was just a minor hiccup.
Oh yeah, sure.
But in any project, you're going to have stuff go wrong, and you just fix it and you move on.
That's the thing we have to concentrate on right now is, it was a minor problem, and then you start hearing that's one of the weaknesses of social media. And then, it runs rampant like, oh my God, there's a problem. And it's like, well, no, not really. It was a couple of weeks. Give the guy a chance. But
I think you're right about kind of the attitude shift. And that's the biggest thing that Gordy brings to the table, I think. It's just a positive attitude. I think there's a segment of our hobby that is, kind of naysayer, curmudgeon, don't want anything to change, hates everything, whatever.
And a lot of them wear vests too.
Well, I'm not going to point fingers or anything, but we all know they're out there.
Settle down, Bruce. I've seen you plenty of times wearing a vest.
Well, that's true.
You mean like a down vest?
Is shame though.
Yeah, like a down vest in the winter to just kind of keep.
No, we're talking like the one with all the railroad patches on it along the engineer hat.
I see Bruce wearing many times in the winter. He's wearing a vest.
I have a nice, Stormy Cromer wool vest. It's a beauty.
Yeah, exactly. So you're always wearing a vest.
And the point is that you're never going to satisfy those people. You're just not, because nothing is ever going to be exactly the way you want it, and they're not going to take the time to understand why things can't be exactly the way they think they ought to be, and et cetera, et cetera. And so you can't let those people bog you down and keep you from doing amazing things. And Gordy's not letting that happen. He's making sure that we're moving forward and that we're trying new things, that we're going to change things, and I think that starts with the attitude, and I feel like the organization is getting on board with this and is starting to feel kind of the same energy and excitement that I have in working on the digital publication.
It seems to me like a really cool Star Trek episode from the first Star Trek, because I asked Gordy point blank one time, on the podcast. I said, "What's the deal?" I said, "What is? Why do you have this passion for the NMRA?" And when he was a young lad, when he was even younger, younger Master Robinson, he went to some sort of a club or meet or something that he wasn't old enough or something, whatever it was. At the end of the day, the story was there was a couple of guys, older fellas that belonged to the NMRA, and they welcomed him in and took him in, and it stuck with him. And I'm thinking, man, I'd love to find these 2 or 3 guys that treated him so well when he was a younger person, because I think they've changed the history of the NMRA forever, and they really had no idea. I think it's such a classic example of don't be a curmudgeon in this hobby. Just enjoy the hobby, and you don't have to help. You don't have to volunteer for anything. Just don't be a curmudgeon.
Yeah, and I think we all have that experience in our past where there was 1 or 2 people already in the hobby who just said, "Yeah, come over." Mine is Chuck Ellis here in Austin. He's an amazing modeler, has a huge layout, has been doing it, for 30, 40 years. I don't know how long he's been doing it. But he's always been very open. He's had people over to his house. He's, let people kind of come on to the crew and learn how to do things. And when I first started, we just met at a train show, and he was like, "Yeah, come over." And I started spending like 2 or 3 nights a week over at his house and working on his layout and learning how to do, plaster scenery and laying track. And that's what it takes, is somebody just like being a decent human being.
How long ago was that, Riley?
I want to say it was like 1990, 91, maybe 1990, somewhere around there. Quite a while ago.
Just a child, 1991. Huh?
I was just a babe at that point.
You're a little bit more than a babe. You had your driver's license.
But all it was somebody being nice and somebody sharing what they were doing, and I was hooked. And I said, I want to be a part of this community.
You're talking about Pat Enright. My dad worked for IBM, and he discovered that IBM was very much about family, and I was the one that was I was all about model railroading because of John Allen's model railroader layout. And what year was that, Bruce?
67.
Yeah. And anyways, I was
either
like
67 or 69, depending on.
Somehow
mine was October 67. I think the one you're talking about was January 69.
Somewhere in there. And my dad said, "Well, there's a model railroad club that IBM has. Do you want to see if?" And so he took me. My dad was not a model railroader at the time, and he took me to the club and dropped me off. And there was this fella, Pat Enright, some fella in his 50s or 60s, who welcomed me in and immediately and let me be part of the club. And man, away we went.
Wow.
Was that in Toronto, or where was that at?
It was in Toronto, yeah. And,
cool. That's neat.
So my guys, what was your guy? You said Dave Ellis?
Chuck Ellis.
Chuck Ellis. I had Pat Enright. How about you, Chris? Did you have anybody that had that much of an impact on you?
No, pretty much everybody I met's been a jerk.
Present company included.
That's an interesting question, because I grew up pretty isolated, and yeah, there was a couple guys around there, but they had like Lionel and stuff, but not that like you're thinking. I probably didn't get that kind of connection with other people in model railroading until I was in my 30s.
Okay.
Yeah, same here.
Being around here, and and I pretty soon after I decided to kind of get back into it pretty heavily, and we moved back to Texas, and part of it was the nostalgia for stuff in Wyoming or in Idaho.
Sure.
But I got into the club here, Southside Club in Dallas, and there was 2 or 3 guys in there that are like Jerry Hoverson, who's a local guy here, and then it wasn't long after that I started operating, and I've kind of got a whole other group of people that became influential as operators. And I would travel to operate and stuff. So yeah, Frank Treadaway is one of the guys that was pretty influential because of operating. And
right, yeah. So he introduced you to that part of the hobby.
Yeah.
How about you, Bruce? Do you ever have any kind of experience like?
Yeah, when I was probably, I'm thinking, be 15, 16, somewhere, 17, somewhere in that range. I got involved in the Model Railroad Club in Windsor, and there's a couple real nice guys there who sort of, welcomed me with open arms. One guy's named Reg Dark, a real nice guy. His son was also in the club, about my age. And then another guy named Bob Stratton that actually worked at the university, and I used to go over to his office now and then and chat with him when I was at university. But they were guys that they welcomed myself and the neighbor next door to me. He was about a year younger than me, so both of us went over there, and we'd ride our bikes over and spend some time, every Wednesday night or whatever it was, for a couple hours at the club, building, working on track or wiring or doing something that the guys had us working on. It was a lot of fun.
Very cool. Very cool very, very cool that young Master Robinson has had that connection, and here we are some 25 years later. It's very cool. That's what we talked. I talked to Uncle Dave Abel. He's all about the camaraderie in the hobby. I think that's something that it's like John Doring said. The NMRA is about model railroading, but then you get in the door and you realize, no, it's about all the cool people that you meet in the hobby.
Definitely.
Bruce, can you give out our email address?
Yes, please send us an email. We'd like to hear your thoughts, good or bad. We look at them all. Our email address is modelerslife@gmail.com. That's modelers with one L, modelerslife@gmail.com.
And Riley, if you ever want to send us an email and you can't remember that address, if you go to our website, amodelerslife.com, and just scroll down a little bit, you'll see a picture of Bruce, the moderately agitated mailboy, in a particularly agitated state. And if you just click on that, boom, all you got to do is fill in the subject line and your text for your email, and you're ready to go. You don't even have to remember the email address.
Riley seems less than impressed by that news.
Yeah.
I was just processing it. I think I can actually handle doing that.
So you were kind of stunned at the simplicity, were you?
I was.
The simplicity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Riley's this whole internet thing is kind of new to Riley, so he's still kind of trying to wrap his mind around it.
I have heard of email. So.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And I just had a thought. Riley, can I
Is
ask
there
you,
like a gong or something?
Yeah, Riley, can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Have you ever wanted a T-shirt with a banana on it?
I was just thinking about that earlier today, and I noticed in my closet that I did not have one, and that I needed to fill that void not only in my closet but in my life.
Yeah, we need to get
a little yellow paint. You could turn that hot dog into a banana.
Yeah, we got to get a. Well, we don't have any. I can't help you right at this moment, but bear with me. I got a feeling that's not that.
I hear the gears turning. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
the AML banana shirts are coming.
Yeah. So, but have you ever wanted
in all popular sizes?
Yeah, exactly, and colors. Have you ever wanted
XL?
Have you ever wanted a T-shirt with a hot dog on it?
That is like second on my list. Yes.
Well, if you go to Midwest Model Railroad, and their URL is midwestmodelrr.com, and you go all the way out to the right of the navigation bar and click on AML, boom, you are in a wonderland of merchandise. You got your hats, your hoodies, your mugs, your T-shirts, and in there is a T-shirt with a hot dog on it.
This new internet thing is pretty amazing.
It really is.
It's just a fad, though. They'll be gone in no time.
And I got a feeling it won't be too long until there's a T-shirt in there with a banana on it. Riley, yeah. I think you've opened this up to a whole new world of culinary delights.
I'm in it, man. Let's go.
Yeah, Riley Triggs, the banana man.
Banana nut. Banana nut.
Yeah, Riley, would you be on the podcast again?
I would be.
Perfect. You got a great personality, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely.
You sure do. You're a great. You know what? You are an asset to the NMRA, and I am so grateful that you and Gordy found each other. Young Master Robinson. You and Young Master Robinson found each other.
How did that come about? That you and Gordy got connected.
You'll have to listen to the podcast that we did with Lionel.
I knew that.
It's all explained there.
I couldn't remember if that was.
Well, but if you're going to be on the podcast again, it's kind of customary to answer people's questions. So could you please just give us a quick answer to how did you meet young Master Robinson?
Let's see. What's the story that we're supposed to tell about this?
I forget.
Underneath the lamppost by the barricade?
Didn't Speed introduce you? Speed introduced you guys, right?
I think it was actually Mike Mackey, maybe Speed as well.
I think Speed had something to do. Yeah, Speed.
Yeah, when Gordy was looking for somebody to take on this, I think, people like that just kind of said, "Hey, there's this guy, you might want to call him." So that's how it started, and it was just kind of out of the blue.
How long did it take a young Master Robinson to talk you into taking on the project?
No time at all.
Oh yeah.
No, I mean, as soon as I heard that this is what the project was and how it fit into everything, I was just like, of course. I mean, the NMRA has needed to do this for 20 years, and whatever I can do to make that happen, I'm in.
Yeah, so less time than it would take to eat a banana, then you're saying?
Way less time than it would take to peel a banana.
So I just want to mention, who else was on that bus when I was waving my phone around?
Who was?
Gordy Robinson.
There you go. There's maybe you planted the seed.
Well, no, I'm just saying he should have been paying more attention.
Yeah, well, at that time though, he was just trying to get he was just trying to get the board of directors to even notice him.
He was also trying to get the British region to
notice him,
deal with him. Yeah,
that my first meeting with Gordy was. The board of directors didn't even want to acknowledge that he was alive or on the planet. And he was not desperately, but he wanted to get involved, and they didn't want him to be involved. Hats off to young Master Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
How do you find the? I'm sorry, but how do you find the free digital issue on the NMRA website? Because I struggle to find the free digital issue.
Well, you mean free to non-members?
Free to non-members. I'm on the NMRA.org right now. I'm on the main page. So how would we direct people to see the free digital copy of the magazine?
Well, you have to go to nmra.zenioapps.com.
Oh, okay. Yeah, not a link. There's not a link anywhere on the main page to do that?
I believe on the main page with the main banner, there is a link there.
It says NMRA Digital Magazine, and I click on that, and it wants me to log in. So that's not it. See, that's
that's members only. Yes.
Well, that's something. That's a discussion. I want to have another NMRA discussion because we gotta. I don't see how. There's no easy way to see the free digital copy of the magazine.
That is correct. We've got a laundry list of things that we need to be doing, and we're checking them off one by one.
All right. Well, hang in there, buddy. I appreciate everything you're doing. It was really fun talking to you about your layout. It's really fun talking to you. Yeah, I'm sorry, but you're gonna have to be on the podcast again.
Anytime.
All right. Just like tonight. The true story is, I realized tonight I had didn't feel like working on the podcast. I didn't feel like doing much of anything, and I thought, hey, I wonder if Riley's doing anything. I'm going to send him a message, see if he wants to do a podcast tonight. So within 3 hours. You organized this, and you were like right there. So that's how devoted you are to helping out the NMRA as well.
Exactly. I mean, anything that it takes, we need to all pitch in. Shoulder to the grindstone.
What do you think of his vision for the future and expanding the membership? Is that he's starting to float that out there? And I mean, when I first started talking, I was like, yeah, this isn't going to happen. And then by the end of the hour and a half, I'm thinking, no, maybe these guys can actually pull this off. I think the possibilities of what they could do are kind of staggering, really, to even think of.
Yeah, and I think that's been also kind of a long-term discussion or conversation about not only how to grow the organization, but how to target the organization. And I've been on panels discussing this, and people have said we shouldn't waste any time trying to get youth involved because this is just an old man's hobby. And so we should just target 65 and over old white guys. And I'm like, no, And I think Gordy wants to expand that a little bit as well.
Those days are so far behind us. Because of social media, there are so many people under the age of 40, under the age of 30 that are deeply involved in this hobby. It's not even funny.
But that's the thing, is that we have to go to them. And so the digital publication is kind of the first step. We've got social media presence and all of that. But we need to bring the hobby to the youth and to where they are and where they're thinking about this and where they're practicing the hobby.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's how you got to attack it. Bruce, you know what I got to do?
No, what do you got to do?
At the 1 hour mark of these interviews, that's when I got to say we're running out of network time.
Oh, I see.
Because if I wait till the hour and 23 minute mark or hour and 30 minute mark,
then they're banging on the door.
There's another half hour of talking and everything. And
yeah.
This is it's a lot of work. That's probably why I have 2 psychiatrists now.
There you go. Maybe you can ask them about that.
Maybe you need to get one just for model railroading.
Yeah, that's what I need.
Just throw a curveball out and say, what do you know about podcasting and the stresses and pressures of being a world famous podcaster?
So she says to me about 2 months ago, she says, I want you to see another psychiatrist in the department. And I'm like, what for? She says, well, because you've because of everything that's happened, this guy's specialty is how to live life after surviving sort of serious cancer, and he wants to talk to you. And I'm like, but do I got it? And she says, no, you don't have to, but we're requesting that you would. And I said, well, I'm going to tell people that I have 2 psychiatrists now. She says, that's fine. How do you get through this one of his first, and of course he wanted me to fill out forms, and I'm like, I'm not filling out any forms. I am not filling out forms. Because he says, no, I just need you to, there's only like 3 pages of questions. And I said, I guarantee you, I bet you $100 right now that within the first 5 questions, one of the questions is, do you have trouble sleeping? And he kind of looks down at the page and he looks at me and he goes, and I said, I'm not filling out forms. They're the same friggin' questions. All right, that's it. We're done. So this is an episode, Riley. This is maybe, you could almost say that the podcast is like the third psychiatrist, because I get to talk about stuff on here. Yeah. There you go.
It's group therapy.
It's group therapy. I love doing the podcast. It is so much fun to do the podcast and talk to people. It is.
Well, I think you and I have a lot to talk about, Lionel.
Okay. I think we do. We'll do it on the podcast. Can we do it on the podcast?
We can.
Perfect. Because people enjoy listening to people talk.
Listen to us, listen to others.
Listen to, you know what? People, why don't you listen to us while we're listening to others? So, Riley, the last time we were on the podcast, it was mostly talking about the digital magazine with young Master Robinson. And it was just like one that we put out there. It wasn't one of our original episodes. This is going to be an original episode. Riley, this is your episode. This is going to be episode number such and such with Riley Triggs.
Can I still be the gunslinger sidekick, though?
Oh, sure.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're like the spin-off show now.
Yeah. It can be the gunslinger sidekick. Yeah. But I felt like you have to have your own. People are going to be years from now when they discover this podcast in an old filing cabinet. They're going to pull it out, and I think you're going to be like episode right around 200, somewhere in there, and people are going to pull it out and go, oh, Riley Triggs, good, and they're going to listen to it. I'm assuming this is like centuries from now. So at the appropriate moment, you have to say happy rails to you. Can you do that?
I can do that.
Now, the key is there's no singing, there's no interpretation, no dance. It's just simply with enthusiasm, happy rails to you.
I'm ready.
All right. Well, then I should probably get the script so I can read it to
you. That would help.
All right. Well, Riley, as we close the barn doors on another episode of A Modeler's Life, and the sun slowly sets over the back 40, I guess there's nothing else left to do except for you to say,
happy rails to you.
and Busted Knuckle, guests of a Modeler's Life podcast, stay at the Casa del Sol Motor Court and Inn, where late-night dancing at the Rumba Room is a magical event to be experienced.
It's another Lincoln Homer.
That was beautiful.
Brought a tear to my eye.
Who was it recently that took 2 or 3 tries to get it right? Somebody that was surprising.
Yeah, there was somebody.
First they said happy trails.
Yeah.
And then they said it completely something else wrong. They took the third try was right.
Yeah, actually, you know who surprised me the most about doing that was Tony Custer. He was like, he got so into that.
He was right into it,
yeah. And I was thinking, might be where we run into trouble is our goofy little ending. And he was like all about it. You know, and we ended up doing 6 episodes with him, and he was like, and then he was like, hey, I've got a different take on the Happy Rails to you. And then I'm like,